episode of Risk and Flow. Today we have an exciting story to share as it goes through entrepreneurship, life, risks, and their rewards in Singapore. I'm happy to welcome to the studio the CEO of Tiny Island Productions and visionary lead and pioneer in 3D animation industry, David Kwok. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I'm super excited to have you here today, as you are the first person to come to the podcast from all the way from Singapore. So I'm super excited.
I'm super excited too. I mean, I'm honored to have this opportunity.
Thank you. I'm glad you are here today. Could we start a little bit about, as I'm super interested to know a little bit about your childhood in Singapore before we go all those entrepreneurship and risks. Tell us, where did you grow and how was your childhood there?
So I grown up in Singapore. We are the third generation coming from China. So my family, they are from Guangdong, right? They speak Cantonese, right? So I grew up here. In Singapore culture, very often is that there are not that many entrepreneurs here because we were brought up, to be well sheltered, and study hard, do well for your studies. After that, you either work for the government or you work for the multinational corporation.
Right.
So we are in a very sheltered environment. We are very lucky to have good government and parents looking after us. So Singapore is a very unique society because we are multiracial, right? We are good friends who are of different religion and different race. We don't differentiate ourselves, as different religion or different culture, but as one, we are Singaporeans, right? So when we were very young, we play football together with my Malays friends. Those I'm from a Catholic school, I have Malays friends, I have Muslim friends, who we grew up together. We love playing football together. And we have Indian friends, and we have Eurasian friends, right? So, so it's very interesting because uh, we were brought up that way, and of course, it's different from the kids today. Our favorite sport, of course, is soccer, football, right? And football bring everybody together, bring our differences together. Not like today's kids, everybody's on the cell phone, right? I mean, our joy is football, going to the drain, catching guppies, catching spiders, catching tadpoles, those are our joy, right? Very, very different from today, right? These days when you say you're naughty, could be stealing or fighting. During our time, you are catching guppies in the drain is considered naughty because it's dangerous, right? Because your parents and your teachers are worried that the drain get flooded and you get washed away.
That sounds quite unique childhood as growing with a mixture of cultures and a kind of safe environment and having those traditional hobbies as a young child in Singapore. What about then? You said you have a great family, and do you have any brothers or sisters, for example? How is your?
I have a brother. We are quite close, and he's doing something really exciting. He runs a scuba diving school, as well as he also teaches people scuba diving. Right. He has a company overseas, which regularly he bring people to dive. He loved the ocean. He loved animals. And he's an entrepreneur too, and he enjoy what he does. Right. Yeah.
Oh, sounds interesting. Diving. I've never done diving, and I don't know if I would dare to or take a risk to try that.
Oh, you should come to Asia. There's lots of places. There's fun.
Maybe one day. Yes, wonderful. What about then about your education in Singapore? If you think about, you said entrepreneurship is not something so common that people do. So how is the maybe traditional study path in Singapore compared to you? Because you made a different choice to become eventually to an entrepreneur.
Okay, I became an entrepreneur by chance, really by accident. I've never thought of being a businessman or entrepreneur before. So, like any other Singaporeans, right? You do well for your studies. As Asians, normally, you study engineering or doctors or lawyers, things like that, right? Or accountant. So I had my honors degree in United Kingdom, right, in UK. And then I came back, I worked for the government for 5 years, just like anybody, right? Doing engineering. After 5 years, I think uh there's a calling. I feel that I should not want to work in a corporate culture. I feel that every day I just going to office and fighting and quarreling, with people about business and all. So I decided to take a risk, right? And I had no idea at the time, about business. So I took the risk. I left my cushion job, a five thousand
Right.
dollars job, running a department to start off being in the industry. Right. At that time, it was very early time of the industry that 3D animation was like something unheard of. Because at the time, if you get to do a Coca-Cola bottle jumping around, that is great. Right? Not to mention TV series or feature film, right? Is almost impossible, right? So being in the industry for about 7 years, I've been through everything. I have been a teacher. I've been a freelancer. I work for multinational corporations, all kinds of stuff. I've been jobless, all kinds. So I think this from year 2000 2007, this period, right? Has changed my whole life, because I've never thought that I could do this, right? I mean, in my dictionary, there's never been company closing down, and I never imagined seeing that, But that seven
Uh-huh.
years after I left my cushion job, right, I start from bottom. I have seen almost everything. I've been through everything, right? And I think as an entrepreneur is very important because if you have everything, right, you're afraid to lose, right?
Right.
If you have lost everything, there's nothing to lose. There's nothing to be afraid of. So I think the 7 years taught me a very valuable lesson. After 7 years running around and all, I realized that okay, I need to be serious with this entrepreneurship thing. In 2003, in the early years, I did try for a while, then I stopped, and went back to work for others. But 2007 was a wake up call. I think
Right.
we always, as artists especially, people always complain about the boss, about the working environment, about everything, right? Uh, my philosophy is if you want to complain and you think other people don't do a better job than you, then do it yourself. That's what I did, right? So
Right.
I started being a visual effects artist. And then I slowly climb up to become a technical director. And because, I feel that I need to understand about the pipeline and everything. So I become a technical director. And then I see the producer at that time wasn't doing a good job. And I told myself, okay, and then I need to be a producer. I need to learn how to become producer. And then I become a producer. I work my way up to become producer. And then I slowly feel that I should put things together. And then I become a boss and CEO. Yeah, that's how I started in 2006, 2007. So it was very difficult when we first started. I mean, I didn't
Uh-huh.
come from a wealthy family, right? My
Right.
dad drive a taxi, right? So I start from zero. We have a room with a table and four chairs. That's how we started, right? It was very naive back then. We were thinking about good friends coming together to just do cartoon. That's it,
Right.
right? And during our time when you talk about doing cartoon for a living, people laugh at you, right? It's like, hey, go and get a real job, right? So I think it was very exciting. I think Singapore, especially as a whole, we saw Weta, the New Zealand company that did Lord of the Rings,
Right.
Singapore, the government, the authority went to visit them, and then they came back. They feel that there's a lot of potential in this area, and the whole nation start to move to this area. I think, if I remember correctly, it was 2004,
Right.
and I was inspired because I always hope that Singapore can push, put in more effort in this area, and it's all happening. Then we have companies like Lucasfilm, Double Negative. The big companies start moving into Singapore. It was very exciting. So when I first started, we started with zero. I mean, I have no money to invest, right?
Right.
As BBC interviewed me, you saw the interview, is that we started with 4 credit cards. We bought some equipments from IKEA, furniture from IKEA, and then we paid by installment, and that's how we started. I painted the walls myself. I was a computer engineer, so I set up the computers, with the help of my friends. So that's how we started, right? And after that, because we don't have money, we started running training programs. We don't have enough
Right.
talents to, we started doing training programs. So we were like working in the day, 6 o'clock, everybody stopped work because the students are coming in, and we start running the class, right? So whatever money we make from the school, right, we put it back, to the production, right?
Yes.
And we were very fortunate. The very first project that we have was with a Thailand client, right? Who has given us this opportunity to do 3 episodes for them, and we developed the characters for them, and I'm very proud, and the characters is like the Mickey Mouse of Thailand, you know.
Right.
And so this client of mine, now we are good friends. We maintain the friendship. So that's how we started, and then the school also grow, right? So we form an ecosystem, though we are not invested by anybody. So we form an ecosystem naturally. We train our talents, and the school make money, and we pump back to the production. Um, so it was perfect, right? And we also slowly becoming a consultant, right? Not just for production, but consultant. Um, in the early days was really easy. We just sit there, and projects come to us, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yes.
over the last 20 years, we faced three crises. Three crises, right?
Hmm.
The first one was because we are
Can I
sorry.
interrupt? Can I interrupt a little bit before we go those crises and challenges?
Yes,
I
yes,
would like
yes.
to comment and ask, because you mentioned you are a computer engineer, engineer in your education and your career, and then you just wanted to sort of leave that corporate life and take
Mm,
the risk, as you mentioned, to start
mm,
something on
mm,
your own.
mm.
But how a computer engineer becomes a 3D animator, as I think it also requires like a artistic talent. Did you already know something about that, or what was the interest behind the
Okay,
3D industry in general?
okay, good question. So, guys, right? We are crazy about sci-fi and everything, right? Especially Star Wars, right? We're all crazy. So when I was young, I love art. I was very interested in art. But like I said, during our time, nobody want to do art because you can't make a living during those days, right?
Right.
So very naturally, I did computer engineering, but computer animation require a lot of knowledge. Actually, in computer engineering, computer
Yeah.
technology, right? So very naturally, I think I'm very lucky. I love art. And I'm just like the rest of the geeks. I always joke. I'm like a big kid trapped in a man's body, right? So we love toys, we love animation, and all. So when I was working for the government, it's like everybody go home. I will stay behind until maybe 3 4 a.m. To learn the 3D software on my own. Yeah,
Right.
this how we pick it up. And I think as an entrepreneur, you always have to learn new things, right? You always have to learn new things on your own. Nobody's there to teach you, right? You have to learn new things because we have to, as the leader, we have to open roads, for the team. So very often is that we have to do it, on our own. Yeah. So that's how I get started. Passion, of course, very important, right? Without
Uh-huh.
passion, who will stay back until 4 a.m. in the morning to do what you do, right? Yeah.
Of course, and that's interesting point that when it comes to education, most of my guests or many of my guests comment that they wouldn't go back to the school if they could choose. They would choose to learn by themselves. What do you think, as a Singapore, maybe more traditional country and the education system, that I think you value more those professions like doctors and lawyers, as you mentioned, but what do you think about it? Was the education bad right for you, but or how do you see that on your side, the education?
I think Singapore government did a very good job. They're always looking at the new trends, because I would say the whole Singapore run like an enterprise, because they're always looking at business, where business heading to. So I think there are always new courses, but during our time, nobody knows what's animation, right? Nobody know how to make a living out of animation. But I say 2004, things start to change, right? So it's exciting. I think the educational system keep changing here to
Uh-huh.
cater for new challenges, business challenges ahead. And I think the our government is very proactive. We're very lucky, the good government. They're very proactive, pushing the and preparing the workforce, ready for global challenges, right? I think,
Right.
but the industry moves so fast. You cannot totally rely on what the school is teaching you. So very often as entrepreneur, we have to be updated. We have to keep looking at where the wind is blowing.
Right. Yeah, that sounds interesting, and I think that too. The I don't know, maybe the traditional education system, even though of course has its good things, but maybe I don't know if it's suitable anymore for this society that advances so rapid and fast paced.
Okay,
Maybe I don't know.
I will talk about this because at the end of my interview, I'll talk about artificial intelligence. So
Right.
I think I will talk about that later, but not to jump the gun and break
Yeah.
your flow. I will address that. Just remind me.
Yeah, let's do that, and let's go back to the that you mentioned. You took the risk, so can we dig a little bit about more deeper about that moment when you decided to leave the corporate job, a well-paid job? What was the inspiration behind on that leap to the unknown?
I think, okay. So I had my education in UK, and I think we are well exposed, to new thoughts, right, about the world and all. I think I didn't want to waste my time and my life on something that I have no interest, right? Of course, the bread and butter is important, right? We want to uh, do well, right? But still, I think it's very important because when I was after 5 years, because in Singapore we have to do national service, the military
Right.
service, right? By the time we finish the military service and the university, we are close to 25, right? And if you want to get married before 30, so you have to work hard, you cannot be an entrepreneur. So most people wouldn't dare to become an entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
So it's very important, right? It's very important. I'm glad that I have a very supportive family and my wife, right? Who understand, uh appreciate my passion, right? I think when I hit almost 30, I told myself, gosh, to me, especially now, I start to realize is that a person's life is about 80 years, right? After that, you're old
Right.
and you're forgetful. And so the day you're born, the clock starts ticking, right? So when I hit 30, I told myself, gosh, I left with 50 years. I better do something meaningful, right? I mean, till today, though I've been through so much, and I see three crises, right? It's very tough. It's very tough. But I still never regret. If I have a choice again, I will still do what I do because I've learned a lot of things, not just for business, not just for entrepreneurship, but in life. That's very important because entrepreneurship has taught me many valuable lessons,
Of course.
which helped me in my life, right? One of the very important takeaway is when you face crisis, you need to remain calm so that you can focus and think, right? Um, it's easy to say, but it's very important to have mental strength
Right.
to overcome because entrepreneurship is not just about doing an MBA, like what
Right.
China Jack Ma said, it's true. It's true. When there is an interview of Jack Ma, they ask him this question, say that if you're to have a choice, will you still do you still want to be an entrepreneur? He paused for a while, but I don't know, because maybe I'm an entrepreneur. I can feel him when I look into his eyes, right? I think
Right.
every entrepreneurs has been through that. The first 3 years is tough. A lot of people get wiped out that 3 years, but that's just the beginning, right?
Yeah,
That's just the
sure.
beginning. Like how you can sustain. That's another
Right.
challenge, right? Is a marathon. It's a marathon. Only you understand because people may cheer you up, but end of the day, you have to cheer yourself up. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are qualities that are needed in a person if they want to be entrepreneurs, to have persistence and do something consistently. For example, after 3 years, it's kind of short time to be an entrepreneur, and a lot of things can happen. The world can change. There is constant challenges, which now I would like to ask you. You mentioned you have faced three main challenges in your entrepreneurial career. So can you tell us what are those challenges have been?
Okay, so so as I mentioned that after 2007, I decided to start my own company with zero investment, and I start to build an ecosystem because we have the school, we have the production, right? Um, Initially, getting work is easy, right? It's easy, right? But as time goes by, uh, it's getting difficult, more and more difficult, right? You cannot just sit there and wait for the jobs to come in, right? So to answer your question is that I think in business, every 5 years, 3 to 5 years, right? Things changes, and it's like selling a ship, right? You really, really need to see where the wind is blowing, right? And sail accordingly, because if you cannot adapt and change, then you will just be wiped out completely. So to summarize is that when I first started, was very naive. I was thinking a bunch of friends who love cartoon and we just come together and do some cartoons, right? That's it, right? But as time goes by, you realize that it's different because many of my employees, they were students. They were my students, and eventually they become parents and they have kids, right?
Right.
And they become my departmental head, right? It's no longer about you or them, but their family, right? So whatever decision you make, you have to be very careful. So the first crisis was I was very contented. I was because projects keep coming in. I was just doing simple stuff like I won't say simple stuff, but more internal stuff like running the production, making sure everything was in order. I was just like a producer, right? But after that, the first crisis was we didn't have work, and then we realized that, oh no, I have to go out and look for work. I cannot just sit in the office, right? So I told the team that you all must learn how to manage on your own, and I have to go out to look for the fish. So when I first get out was a whole new challenge, right? Because before that, uh, my wife was helping me with the finance and legal, right? But
Right.
when she started looking after my kid, my first kid, right? So I have to learn about finance and legal stuff, right? Law, right? Which I didn't like it. When it comes to words and numbers, it's like, gosh, I faint. But I have to because why I have to? Because knowing the numbers help us to predict the future. Now, as an entrepreneur, I totally understand the cash flow very important, right?
Right.
The other thing is the knowing the numbers help you to forecast challenges ahead, right? And of course, the legal part is very important, so that you don't get trapped, right? Because the Western world has their own set of rules. When you go to China, there's a different set of rules, right?
Right.
So the first crisis actually educate me on all this, right? And also I slowly learned to become a real CEO, right? Not just like a hawker selling food, It's more than that. You sell the food, you must know how to market it, you must know how to sell it, and how to. I learned a lot, right? Especially for PR, right? Public relation,
Right.
right? That's very important. You can have a small company, but you cannot have a bad PR, right? So
Right.
if so, you need to learn how to build good relationship with the media, right? Like for example, if you're interviewed by the local press, that's good, but you can be interviewed by the international press. People will see you differently. Like it's like a brand, right? Branding is very important, right?
Right. Of course.
So I learned how to build relationship with the journalists and all. This is very important. I didn't realize how important it is. Because once you have a good international reputation, then doing business is easy, right? Determination very important, right? Like I when I first stepped into was difficult because I don't know anybody, right? But slowly when I start to meet up the big companies, right? I will wait like half hour outside the restaurant or in the cold for some big executive to come and build friendship and all. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But I worked my way. That's why I built a very good relationship in the West, in Hollywood, and also over Europe side. Right? Then I came back. I rebuilt a relationship in Southeast Asia and eventually China. Right.
Right.
So that was very important because initially I was just sitting there waiting for work, but now then I realized no, I have to do more than that. So I overcome the first crisis and then I start to learn how to build my brand. I did my own. We did our own. We invested 5.2 million in our own IP, Dream Defenders, right?
Right.
Because the school
Right.
was making money and we could afford to do that, right? Um, then we have the second crisis, right? The second crisis where we have a Asian client, who owe us money and he didn't pay, right? So we were struggling with the finances and also other challenges, right?
Right.
The Singapore side, because normally once they invested in 10 years, so things slow down. So you have to depend on yourself, not totally depending on government, right? And also,
Right. Of course.
so things change in terms of fundings, education. The school also less students because people because Singapore getting more expensive, right? Become service work is harder, right? So that was the second crisis, right? Because again, as you can see, is the environment change, right? The business environment change, right? So
Of course.
again, it was very bad at first, but we overcome that, right? I think very important one lesson that I learned, just give you some illustration, right? So that you have a better understanding. So it's almost like you go into a new terrain, right? It's like a Vietnam War. You go inside the new terrain. You're not you're not familiar with the environment. Enemy suddenly attack you from the left and the right and the front and the back, and your man got shot and dead. And then you have a team of untrained people, and what you going to do? You cannot be panicked, like I told you. You have to focus, remain calm, bring your emotions together, and reorganize the people and fight and get out, right, from your crisis. That's what I did. That's what I learned. So very important. I always use battlefield analogy, right? When it comes to business, all these things nobody taught me. I never take MBA or anything. So it's very important. No, as you become experienced, you learn. You have the courage. You learn. So so we overcome the second crisis, right? Because we reorganize ourselves and fight. Because at the time was very tough. No, my people are going away, and we are losing people. We're losing talent.
Right.
Yeah, and it was tough, right? So then we went into the third phase, right? Which I told myself, okay, enough. I think we can do service work, but we cannot rely on Singapore alone, right? We have to go international. So we started to
Right.
having teams, in different countries, right? And then we say to ourselves, we have to focus on IP, right? Intellectual property creation. So I started going to China, right? I went to China for 7 years. Though
Oh,
I'm
really?
Chinese,
I
I
didn't know.
yeah, I
So
think it's
you
not easy.
spent it,
Yeah, sorry.
you lived in China for 7
No, I
years.
didn't. I didn't live in there, but I go in and out, right?
All right.
And I have to relearn my Chinese. Though I'm a Chinese, I have to relearn, right? Because in Singapore, Chinese is a second language, right? And I'm very thankful what our government, has made us learn Chinese, right? Because it's not easy. Because the back then the Chinese language that we learn is good enough to buy food and just talk to friends, right? And now we're talking about
Right.
business. You have to pitch ideas. It has to be a lot better, right? So I have to relearn my Chinese all over again, and because I'm a Cantonese, right? And Singapore, the good thing is that we have a couple of dialects. It becomes very useful when you go
Right.
to different parts of China doing business, right? And I start to understand their mentality and the way they work and all. So I start to build friendship, and I'm very thankful. A lot of people are giving me chance and help me, right? So yeah, so it wasn't easy, but eventually we back then it was before COVID. We signed a 10 feature film deal, right? We signed a 10 feature
Okay.
film deal. We have a big announcement in Cannes, right? And with the help of my partner from Thailand, right? And we signed a 10 feature film deal with a state enterprise, SMG in China. I was really honored. It was a big event. And suddenly we go to LA, and everybody was very excited. Like, hey, who are these guys? And da. So we have a very good team, right? Then the third crisis came.
Third crisis. And what is the third crisis? I think we all can guess which is.
Yes, COVID, right? Gosh, I mean, uh, gosh, this sounds like Lord of the Rings. So, so the third crisis really almost killed us. In fact, we haven't totally
Right.
recovered. So, because less people going to cinema, the business were affected, jobs were affected. You know, um, in fact, we haven't really recovered. As you can see, the global media business has changed, right? Because many countries haven't totally recovered from COVID, right? A lot of things, right? The kids of today, your kids and your kids, the attention span is different now, right? First 2 seconds, you have to catch them, right? So
Of
TV,
course.
gosh, I mean, TV is a different thing nowadays, for them, right? And also cinema, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you. Look at how many people go to cinema, right? And in Singapore, our cinema business is affected, right? And also the other things that surprised me, toys, right? I love toys. We love toys, right? The kids today, I'm surprised. No, they they play more on electronic, games and toys, right? So of course, the toy company who invested in a lot of TV shows, has changed, right? So these are some of the things that affected the industry tremendously, because consumer behavior, right, has changed. We are almost going through what I call industry revolution, reset, rewind. Then of course we know the hot topic of artificial intelligence, right, coming in. It changed the way we do things, like 50% cheaper than what we used to do, right? 5 to 10 times faster, right? So
Yeah, that's a huge impact on your industry, especially.
yeah, especially our industry, right? So a lot of people were lost, and you can see recent years is even worse, right? It's like we are talking about artificial intelligence catching up every 3 months so fast, right? When I first exposed about a year ago, people showed me, I said, I don't think it's going to work, right? I saw what they did for the concept, right? I said, that's rubbish. I don't think it worked. 3 months later, I said, wait a minute.
What
What
is
is this?
happening?
What is happening? What's this? Right? Then my friend told me, say, hey, Dave, you should start looking at this thing. So I tried to play around, and the funny thing is that now I have to convince my friend who first asked me to take a look, because I have
Yes.
moved faster, because I moved faster than him and he's left behind. So about a year ago, we started researching, and I think I'm glad that I did. And I've been doing a lot of experiment and integration, and not just looking in the West, we look in the East, we understand what is needed, among the tools, right? What is good for, what are the good tools in China and in the US, what they can do, what they cannot do, how do we integrate them? And so we have been looking at this. I don't know. Now we are hopefully overcoming the third crisis. We will be looking more training in this area, as well as projects in this area. It seems like slowly helping us to recover. I think I'm excited about this, and it seems like there's a lot more opportunities, right? So nobody knows what's gonna be, right? So we have to keep adapting and keep changing, right?
Of course.
But personally, I don't see this to be forever. Like I shared with you, right? We're looking at even further, at content for Apple Vision Pro. Remember, I was telling you, like what they do for Matrix and Ready Player One, right? So we
May
have
I
to keep
ask?
adapting. Yeah.
Yeah, may I ask you, because all this is so interesting. You have a long story of that young corporate life career to all this development to become a CEO. You mentioned all those new skills you need to learn and adapt and make your company to success. And also you have had successes, as you mentioned, the going to Cannes Festival. You are also nominated to was it the top 10 entrepreneurs in Singapore? Also, you have got acknowledgement. And even though entrepreneurship path is those up and downs and challenges, maybe even failures at some times, I would like to ask your idea of yourself. Have you been this kind of risk taker already at a young age, or how do you see you have evolved through the risk taking, maybe through this entrepreneurship career?
Okay, I think I was not trained or brought up in such a environment, right? But I think the three crisis has kind of trained me and grown me to who I am today, right? I think the determination part is very important as an entrepreneur. Very important. Like I always joke, I always show people a clip, right, of the salmon, right? The salmon trying to swim across the road, right? So you
Right.
have to, because nobody will give you a second chance, right? So either you give up, or you have to move on. And I always tell myself is that if I were to give up, right, by any chance I give up, I would regret for the rest of my life. Because to sustain just for that one more second, I will cross the line. That's what I tell
Right.
myself, right? That's what I tell myself. And I'm glad, that I'm given this wisdom and courage, right? Because if not, I wouldn't be where I am today, because it's very tough. This third crisis is the toughest. As you can see, many big companies gone down, and we haven't totally overcome it, but I can see there's a lot of potential. I think optimism is very important in entrepreneurship. Optimism, right? Because if not, you can't fight on, right? And as a leader, very important, because if you can't fight on, and you don't have the spirit, your man cannot be behind you, right? They will not have confidence. So very important. The determination is very important. I think one valuable lesson to take away is, to me, there's no. Okay, there's no. Okay, if I cannot find a door, I will find a door elsewhere, or I dig a door. No matter how, I will find a way out. I cannot accept that there's no door, right? We have to find
Right.
a way, no matter how. I think this is very important as an entrepreneur, because not just what you do, but also about your life.
Mhm.
In life, you face a lot of challenges, right? It's so important to have that fighting spirit, to
Of
live on
course.
and fight on.
Yeah, that sounds all wise words for me, and it all makes sense to fight and also push through those challenges, and whatever things comes in front of you during these uh, times at the world right now and even before. What do you think in risk? You mentioned this positivity and opportunity. Do you think a risk as a word for you, is it more negative or positive, or what do you think? Um, are you a risk
Okay,
taker, and what do you think about the word itself?
in Chinese, the word risk, right, means opportunity.
Really?
You need to take risk to have opportunity.
Mhm.
So there's always saying, when there's a risk, there's opportunity. If there's no risk, there's no opportunity. Okay, I'll give you an analogy. Like now, what we are facing is like industry revolution. Things change, everything change. So we are like what I share with people. It's like a tsunami coming. The big ships will not be able to turn in time. Okay,
Right.
the small ships better start running. If they don't, they will sink together with the big ships. It's not about winning the game. It's about sustaining. So if the tsunami whack all the big ships down, then the small ship will rise to the occasion. But so why I say that, this is just an illustration, because if the tsunami doesn't come, which is the word risk, right?
Right.
The big ship will always be in front of you. Am I right? Right. And because
Right.
there's a tsunami come, there's a chance that you might overtake, right? There's a chance for you, right? If the tsunami doesn't come, then there's no opportunity for you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's quite interesting point of view that you see it so positive thing, and you said in Chinese language. Did you say
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
means if there's no risk, there's no opportunity? So it's a positive connotation on
yeah,
the word
yeah,
itself, which is,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's wonderful. We have around 10 minutes to talk, David, and the time flies with you, and your story is incredibly interesting. But as you already a little bit touched about the future, I have a two question for you. You told us, as a CEO of Tiny Island and 3D animation, the future is changing, the society, the world is changing all the time. So how does the future look ahead, and what are your hopes and maybe fears related to it?
I only have hope. I have no fear, because I already been through the worst. I cannot imagine what worse can come, right? And I think I have nothing to fear but just to move ahead. One thing I learned also, right, as an entrepreneur, is that, like I said, we only have 80 years in our life, right? I'm more than halfway there. And and what could be worse, right? What could be worse, right? So I always say that, anything, if you can fall down and stand up again, then I say do it, right? Nothing to fear. As long
Right.
as you fall down, you can get up again and walk. Then I say, don't think, do it. Because sometimes in life we think too much. Personally, I feel, if you're talking about media, right? One of the interesting trend I'm seeing is the micro drama, like I mentioned before. It's like the kids and a lot of the people these days, they don't have the patience. They are watching a drama on the train, right, to work, right? I don't know about your part of the country. You come to Asia, everybody's on the phone all the time, right? All the time. Yeah, and
May
less
I
people
say?
watching. Yeah,
May I say, because I'm from Finland, as it's a small
yeah,
country and maybe dark country, and maybe we are more turned inside. So I think it's very natural for us to use our phones on the public transport, for example, and stare at the screen without not having to talk with other
yeah.
people. But
So
yes, I can see that in Finland also, the people, even the young, the old, they are stuck in their phones and their screens and all that.
yeah, so it's a trend, right? It's a trend that,
Yes.
especially in China, right? Is crazy. I mean, like there's less people watching TV. Even my dad stopped watching TV, right? All the time he's on the phone and looking at dramas on the phone, right? So I think micro drama is coming in. It's hot in China. It's coming up to Asia. The Chinese has tried in the US, and is doing well. They're looking at expansion. Last time micro dramas, right, is mainly about family love, romance, office, kind of a romance or events, right? But very limited with low budget, right? Low budget. But with AI, gosh, it seems to be driving that direction, right? Because you can be the queen tomorrow, and you can lead a army of 10 million across on a micro drama, and also because is on the phone, is more forgiving in terms of quality and all. So I think AI is bringing that together, and it's exciting because imagine you can do sci-fi dramas, horror shows, and etc. I see the future is like almost like you're running your own TV station. You can
Right.
do your own dramas, and then you can meet your fans on your channel, right? In Asia, they have they call it the pop-up stores, right? Suddenly you can just pop up and sell merchandise. You can bring your
Right.
actors, right, to meet your fans, right? You can create um virtual celebrities, right? Nothing is real these days. If you go to my TikTok account, you see we have dancing girls, and all they're all not real, right? I mean,
Right.
right. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, product placement, etc. Monetization, is a whole new world out there. Imagine last time, maybe you are a film director, maybe you're an actor, but because it's so competitive, right? Not easy to become an actor. Maybe you just do television commercial, right? If you're a director, you don't have money, you cannot do your own film. But now, with the technology, it's possible. You can make your own film, and you become an actor. You can do your film. I mean, things like that, right? So I see it as a whole new world, a whole new opportunity. It's up to you to imagine how to use the tools to to bring that opportunity. Like for example, last time, like the Nvidia boss saying that, oh,
Right.
you should learn coding, but now you don't, right? I mean, but it's true. Now slowly you can ask AI to create the game for you. But so what is it, right? The trick is AI cannot replace creativity. I don't know, maybe future, but at least for now, right? So you should focus in creating a fun game. You should focus in creating a good movie, right? Or good story, right? This nobody can replace, right? Okay. And let the machine do the tedious, boring job for you, right?
Of
Right.
course.
And then you have to be smart, right? To see how to create a product and monetize and make money. So that is at least the near future. I won't say future.
Yeah, that all sounds very interesting, and there are a lot of possibilities how you can develop and use the AI and animation on your benefit and creative, as you are a creative person, so you can think, I'm sure you can think those ways to use those tools that maybe everyone cannot. So it's always exciting to see how these industries develop and what's the future will be. So that's all super exciting. And I think the time will only tell how the AI will eventually turn out and develop.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, is that it should be used as a tool, right? The tool to do things for you, right? I mean, imagine last time you may be a foot soldier, you maybe just want somebody at the bottom, right? But now you could climb up, you can do your own things, right? You can do your own things, right? So yeah, the is endless. Because last time there's a lot of red tapes, right? For example, you have to get your film into the cinema is so hard, right? You want to get the game out is so hard, right? But now, with all this new tech and platform, in terms of distribution and everything, it makes it easier, much easier than before, right? Yeah.
That's true. That's true. David, I have one more question for you before we finish the episode. It's been a pleasure to talk with you and super exciting to hear your story. But if you think the whole journey from the beginning to taking that first, maybe the biggest risk to decide to move on to the entrepreneurship, start your own company and face all those challenges and successes. But what do you think eventually were all those risks are worth of taking at the end of the day?
Okay, I'm not sure. I mean, if I will really be successful, because it all depends how you define success, right? Like Michelle Obama said, is your success is not measured by the amount of money you make, but the differences you make in people's lives, right? Right. So it all depends on individual vision and what they want, right? Personally, of course, everybody hope to be successful, as in you do well, and make money, right? Of course, it's important, right? But I think what matters most is, like I always say, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. The final destination is important, but enjoying the journey is even more important, right? I think you must, in my opinion, you must be able to enjoy the journey and learn from the journey and appreciate what you learn, right? Because no matter how successful you are, whether you make a lot of money or become very famous, right? Like I say, 80 years, everybody go back to the same place, right? Where they come from, right? So no matter, to me, successful is good, but everybody end the same, to me, right? More important is that you enjoy the journey, you learn from the journey, you grow, and pass on what you learn. That's what I do. I always share with my staff what I learn, share my close ones, what I learn. And then it's worth, right? And it's worth, right? If not, then you will hate what you do. And it's like suffering. Then I think these people shouldn't become an entrepreneur. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful, David. I think that these are good words to finish the episode and everyone reflect and think about their journey and their approach and risk and entrepreneurship and success. I want to say a huge thank you, David, to being here today and share this podcast with me and share your story about entrepreneurship risks and their rewards in Singapore, which is great to get to know people also from all over the world. As you also mentioned, creating relationships and get to know people. So I want to say a huge thank you for being here today, David.
Thank you, Jane. I mean, I'm honored, and yeah, I'm really honored that I'm invited. And thanks for giving me this opportunity to share what I've been through. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Risk and Flow says thank you for all listeners and viewers, and we see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.